people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Another reason for me, wanting to dance with French, and how can I go after losing my world title? How can I go back down to 8 rounds when fans have supported me all over the country, people from Hartlepool, the North East, travelling all the way down to London? How then can I jump into an 8-rounder and want to build myself again? I believe I'm at world level, and these are the sort of fights that I want.
At the same time, did you have any reservations? I mean, talk about out of the frying pan into the fire, a massive fight against Claressa Shields that didn't go your way, but you're straight into an undisputed title fight. People probably would have forgiven you for a comeback fight or a slightly easier route.
No, not at all. I'm coming up 32 now, and I've been boxing for 21 years. So if I'm not ready now, I'm never going to be. Time's of the essence, and time doesn't wait for anyone. And like I said, I believe I'm at world level. And if I can't mix it with likes of Francian, then am I in boxing?
See, this is a real fight, and these are the fights we want to see. I'm a boxing fan as well as being involved in it. And we want to see good fights. Win, lose, or draw. It's not the end if you lose. All the greats over the past have lost. The only ones that don't lose is if they've had lucky decisions, or they've had a right result, or they've had a home crowd behind them, or promoter knows somebody. At the end of the day, everybody gets wet sooner or later. It's how you come back from defeat, not about the loss.
It's a big ask for Savannah Marshall. A big ask fighting someone like a French on Crews on the heels of her first professional loss to Claressa Shields. And there's no shame in it, there isn't, but this is a difficult assignment unto itself.
French on is one tough customer.
A mid-range to inside fighter, a volume puncher.
Pressure fighter.
That's what French on Crews does. She applies pressure, barreling forward, getting off looping rights, big ones.
This fight is the byproduct of things not working out between Savannah and Claressa for a rematch. Claressa insisted that the rematch take place in America, and the problem is the first fight was bankrolled by Boxer, who's based out of the UK, not the USA.
They can't do the show if you want it to go down in America. Thus, the rematch, it didn't happen.
Oddly enough, Claressa was willing to return to the UK for a Natasha Jonas fight, but not for a Marshall rematch.
She'll be fighting Hannah Gabriels for the second time instead. That will be featured on the DAZN platform. This fight,
I figured I'll make this available by way of ESPN+.
For us here stateside. If not, I can only deduce that it might be available for purchase on Fight TV. That's FITE TV.
On the undercard of the Smith versus Eubank rematch, which we talked about in my previous video.
Now, you could argue that unbeaten up-and-comer from right here in America, Jar-Deja Green, you could argue that she deserves the shot at Franchon's belts more than Savannah does, because Jar-Deja is her mandatory challenger, whereas Savannah is little more than a voluntary title defense for Franchon, not a mandatory. But that decision, the decision to fight Savannah instead of Jar-Deja, that's Franchon's decision.
Boxer, who promotes Savannah Marshall, they might be the ones paying for the show, and they might be the ones that made Franchon the offer, but it's Franchon's offer to accept or reject, and she accepted it.
So, if you have a problem with Savannah Marshall getting this title shot ahead of Jar-Deja Green, you essentially have a problem with Franchon's rationale. I understand that this fight will get Franchon more money than a Jar-Deja Green fight would.
This fight has more of a profile than a Jar-Deja Green fight would.
Jar-Deja's a great boxer, but she's not very well known, not yet, whereas Savannah Marshall has established herself as one of the biggest and most destructive punchers in the entire sport of women's boxing.
Don't misunderstand me. I think Jar-Deja's a destructive puncher too. You see what she did to Eline Cedar-Rouge.
She can punch. They both can, but more people know about Savannah's power than Jar-Deja's power. Thus, this fight has more of a profile than the Jar-Deja Green fight would.
Initially, the WBC ordered the fight between Cerebral and Franchon Crews, not knowing that Franchon was in deep negotiations for a Savannah Marshall fight, and that the fight was all but done. Once they realized this, they rescinded the order.
Though heavy is the head that wears the crown. Whoever emerges the victor of this fight, whether it's Franchon or Savannah, they will adopt Cerebral as their mandatory challenger, and someone is going to have to deal with her.
Things to think about.
The fight itself makes for an all-action shootout. The fight between Savannah and Franchon.
This will herald a move back to the women's super middleweight division.
A better division, a better weight, I think, for Savannah Marshall, who's 32 years old now. She's not getting any younger. She won't have to boil down to 160 for this match.
And we'll talk about what effect that might have on performance.
Savannah's performance, not having to cut that additional 8 pounds, the additional 8 she'd have to make middleweight.
Sure, she's breathing a sigh of relief.
We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. In men's heavyweight news, more on what could be the long-awaited, long-anticipated Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder showdown. Former WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder has confirmed that an Anthony Joshua fight offer is on the table at the end of the year in Saudi Arabia. Wilder also said fans will finally see the dream fight.
We've got confirmation on both sides. You've got Wilder confirming this news and Eddie Hearn himself confirming this news.
For Deontay Wilder, who's close to 40 now, and he's got well over 40 professional bouts, given the business decisions that have been made on his behalf in the past.
I've said over the years right here on this channel that whatever decisions were made on his behalf, they weren't made with his best interests in mind.
They couldn't have been. When he rejected the $12.5 million offer, the first offer that they got from Matchroom, try and understand that he wasn't making anywhere near that kind of money at that time. And each offer that followed was bigger than the last and bigger than what Deontay Wilder was making at that time.
For perspective,
It all started in 2018. Wilder had just beat unbeaten Luis Ortiz in March of that year, March of 2018. The following month, he's made an offer for $12.5 million. This offer was 6 times what he made in the Ortiz fight. Wilder turned it down.
that's fine.
Eddie Hearn and Matchroom didn't stop there. They continued to make Deontay Wilder offer after offer after offer, which he rejected, each one bigger than the last. $15 million guaranteed at 40% of the pay-per-views upside, rejected.
40%, close to 50% of the pay-per-views upside. And bear in mind that Wilder wasn't making money like this, and he only had one belt, just one belt. He only brought one belt to the table. Anthony had the other 3. He was an unbeaten fighter at the time, worth a hell of a lot more money than Wilder.
But Wilder, through his team, rejected offer after offer after offer, even though those offers were worth more money than what he was making at the time, and more money even than what he made with Tyson Fury, and what he stood to make, and he admitted that himself.
We often bring that up because people like to forget.
Or pretend they forgot, or even worse,
Twice.
suppress that information. That in Deontay Wilder's own words, he stood to make more money with Anthony than what he was making with Tyson Fury. That's an important detail, a very important detail.
Because that accents the earnestness of Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua's efforts to make this fight. And even now,
They're still trying to make it. They could blow this guy off and tell him kick rocks. There's no point in fighting you now. They could do that, but they're not.
they don't actually need a Wilder fight to make money. They can make money fighting guys like Otto Wallin and Filip Hrgovic. They're choosing to move forward with this in spite of the past.
You could make that same argument for Deontay Wilder, but the difference is Wilder's not going to drum up big numbers in big business here in America with any old body. The Robert Helenius fight is proof of that.
Yeah,
Under
yeah,
100,000 pay-per-view buys.
What happened to his adoring public?
The little Hulkamaniacs, Wilder maniacs, the little bronze bombers. What happened to them?
They didn't buy his fight. That's what happened.
WBC last year in November ordered a fight between Deontay and Andy Ruiz, and it seems like that fight, it never got off the ground, even though in theory it was supposed to be easy to make. An in-house fight involving 2 PBC fighters,
Yeah.
2 PBC heavyweights.
And the story at the time was they couldn't satisfy the fighters' financial demands.
The PBC and Showtime, who would have presumably bankrolled this card and aired it as a box office fight. In truth, Wilder versus Ruiz likely would have done better numbers than Wilder versus Helenius, though not that much better.
And nowhere near what he can make opposite the ring, Anthony Joshua.
There's no comparison. I wonder what Wilder's affiliations to Showtime and Al Heyman are these days. Are they even part of these talks? Part of the picture?
If and when they get this fight over the line, Who's going to show it in America?
It's obvious who's bankrolling the fight, who's paying for it. The Saudis are paying for the fight.
It's on their dime.
But who's going to get the U.S. rights to the fight? Who's going to show it?
On a scale from 1 to 10, how close were you to join DAZN if there was any consideration, Mr. Wilder?
Man, you know,
Well, let me answer it.
answer that one.
We went together. We wanted to hear what they had to say. They made a very substantial offer. But at this point in his career, what he has accepted to go forward was better and better for him.
That was the tune Shelley Finkel was singing in 2018, claiming that what he decided to do after rejecting DAZN's offer was better.
This is after he rejected DAZN's $100 million offer.
Shelley Finkel claimed what Wilder accepted was better for him. What was better?
What?
Losing to Tyson Fury? Losing to Tyson Fury for less money than you were offered to fight AJ on DAZN.
Call that better?
Do you believe they were acting in good faith by making the offer that they're genuinely interested in getting Deontay to come over?
Yes, but we also feel when Deontay knocks Joshua out, we want millions and millions of people to see it. And at this point, DAZN doesn't have that.
That's the tune Shelley Finkel was singing years ago. Years later, it's Showtime's numbers and Showtime's viewership that's shrinking. It's Showtime whose audience, the audience that consumes boxing, it's Showtime whose audience is dwindling, and since then, DAZN's audience has only grown.
Their area of operations has grown.
I think when they first debuted in America, they were operating out of 9 countries, just 9 countries. It's gone from 9 to 170 plus. 170 plus territories. Countries where they do business, where they show fights, not just fights, but sports in general, because they are a sports streaming app.
Showtime doesn't have a foreign broadcast partner, you understand? They don't have a foreign broadcast partner in the UK.
Foreign broadcast partner in all these other markets and territories where you can sell a boxing match. They don't have that, but DAZN does. DAZN operates in many, many territories that Showtime doesn't.
At that time, rejecting DAZN's $100 million offer, at least according to Shelley, was better for Wilder. But you tell me if the shellacking that he took against Tyson Fury, you tell me if that was better for Wilder.
What was better about it? Deontay Wilder himself said the DAZN people offered him more money.
More than he stood to make with Fury. All he got out of fighting with Fury was an ass whooping.
Hindsight being 2020, and what decisions were made on Wilder's behalf, you have to sit back and ask yourself, what was better?
Seems to me like at that time the priority was satisfying the PBC's broadcast partners, who were both Showtime and Fox at that time. And Deontay Wilder eventually migrated over to Fox, but when he did, he got his ass kicked.
That was the second Tyson Fury fight, and the third.
That's what prioritizing Al Heyman's broadcast partners got Deontay Wilder. That's what it got him.
So it's not too late to turn a new corner, turn over a new leaf, and go into business for himself. This fight with Anthony Joshua represents a greater value than anything he made with Tyson Fury.
Win or lose.
Depending on the PBC and Al Heyman's level of involvement, or the lack thereof, we might actually get this fight. I mean, things are looking encouraging.
But things are very different now than they were then. Both Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua have suffered more than one professional loss.
They're not champions anymore. It's not for undisputed. It's not a unification match of any kind.
But the silver lining is it doesn't need to be for you to sell it.
It's the saving grace.
In reference to that fight, Anthony Joshua himself says he'll never be a bruiser as he looks to continually improve his ring IQ.
We've seen with other fighters, like Vladimir Klitschko, how a more cerebral approach can extend a fighter's career.
It can.
After taking some time to reflect on his most recent performance, former heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua told Sky Sports that people need to look at the specific attributes of a fighter when analyzing their game. Joshua, for instance, has taken some criticism for not doing more to force a stoppage of Jermaine Franklin. But Joshua says he's more of a thinking fighter who is cerebral in the ring. I'm quite tall. I've got a long range, but I'm not going to be a bruiser. If you look at my character, I'm not the most aggressive, outwardly type person. I'm not a fighter. I'm more of a boxer. There's a thought process. There's a method behind the madness. With that in mind, Joshua says he's been working to sharpen his mind and his tactics in fights rather than try to simply blast his opponents out of the ring. That said, he is aware that there are instances that require him to just bite down and fight.
That might seem like a reasonable explanation as to why Anthony isn't quite the same strong finisher that he used to be, but you have to wonder if that's the right headspace to be in ahead of a Wilder fight.
I've always tried to develop my boxing IQ, but over 12 rounds there are times where you have to fight and you want to become a box fighter, a man who has a plan A, B, and C in his locker, because he can use his jab, he can move around, he knows how to defend. I think he'll have more of a chance to be victorious in a tough fight. So ultimately, Anthony Joshua says he's pleased he was able to get the 12 rounds in against Franklin, as he was able to get additional experience he believes will help him become a more well-rounded fighter. In the meanwhile, Joshua is being lined up for what is expected to be a very notable fight in December, and while he waits, there's a possibility of a fight happening over the summer. It's going to take for him and his coach to be pleased with their ongoing process and training before he's willing to consider it.
Should he box Wilder or should he fight him?
Tyson Fury was able to do to Wilder what he did to Wilder because he put Wilder on his back foot. And Wilder's no boxer. He's a one-trick pony, a one-handed fighter.
All he's got is that right hand.
He doesn't have a peach of an uppercut or a good left hook.
He's no good on the inside.
Footwork's sloppy. He's got messy feet, uncoordinated movements, but he does have that right hand, that one-hitter-quitter power. And you have to ask yourself, is it better to box a guy like this or fight him?
Fury took away his right hand by stepping into his punches, stepping into his jab, and smothering Wilder, not giving him enough room to throw it.
But if you're staying downwind of this guy, trying to stay behind your jab, you are essentially giving him enough room to extend his right hand. You're giving him enough room.
You're giving him room to work.
Anthony Joshua has been described as being somewhat tentative ever since he got stopped by Andy Ruiz. He's not quite the same finisher that he used to be, and if he is unsure of himself, that makes this a much closer fight than it was in 2017 and 2018.
Still breaking in a new trainer, who's a very good trainer, don't get me wrong, but Anthony ain't been with this guy all that long.
It's not a question of who the more accomplished fighter is, the more accomplished heavyweight champion, and who's fought more divisional top 10s, who's fought more, beat more world champions and taken their belts. That's Anthony Joshua, but he's not in character.
He's not the same guy that he was before Ruiz knocked him out. He's more tentative.
So does that help him or hurt him ahead of what could be a Wilder fight, trying to be a more cerebral fighter?
He's changing, and he's not alone. You see the stuff that Deontay Wilder and his trainer and friend Malik Scott have been working on. You get the sense that they're trying to round out Wilder as a fighter as well.
Which is quite novel at his age and how many pro fights he already has, but it looks like they're trying to teach an old dog new tricks.
I don't think it's a good idea to try and win a points decision against Deontay.
What worked for Tyson Fury was stepping into his punches and smothering Wilder, in effect taking away his power shot, his big right hand.
Because he didn't have room to throw it.
But if what you plan on doing is fencing with this guy, getting into a proverbial battle of the jabs, that does give Wilder enough room, enough real estate, and enough time to shoot that right.